This is the Tame Aperture podcast.
Open the pod bay doors, Cal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Welcome to the Tame Aperture podcast of the new decade. Happy 2020, y'all. Be sure to subscribe and join us for a new podcast every week where we discuss movies from first-time directors, indie films, art house, and much, much more. Head on over to www.tameaperture.com to join us in the conversation. This week on the podcast, we talk the French film from 2008 titled Martyrs. The story follows a young woman's quest for revenge against the people who kidnapped and tormented her as a child, as she leads her and her friend, who is also a victim of child abuse, on a terrifying journey into a living hell of depravity. The film is rated R for disturbing severe behavior involving strong bloody violence, torture, child abuse, and some nudity. The film premiered at the 2008 Cannes Film Festival and was later released by Wild Bunch in France in September and the Weinstein Company in October of the same year, and has been associated with a movement of French films categorized as the new French extreme. I'm Gabe Vienendahl, film instructor, filmmaker, and movie enthusiast. I'm joined by none other than Alan Martindale, veteran podcaster, film fanatic, and editor. And tonight, we also have the pleasure of having Sir Brandon Richardson join us from Glamati Road Pictures. Alan, Brandon, how the hell are we tonight?
My question is, how are you guys after watching this movie?
Shit.
Can I take a stab?
Jesus.
Can I take a stab at these actor names?
Please do.
Okay, so I guess we should
Quickly, I speak Spanish. You would think I would have some kind of accent into it. I have
It's a
no
romance
idea.
language. You should, but I don't
I
have a
can't
clue.
do these names. I apologize, by the way, to these actors. They will be
Right.
subtitled in the video. So for those listening to the podcast, Alan will take a stab at
I'm
it.
going to take a stab, and we're probably going to butcher all this stuff because it is French and we don't speak French. But so I think the director, I think it's Pascal Laugier.
Laugier.
Okay.
Is the
Laugier.
R still present?
I don't think so. I think it's Laugier.
The R goes silent.
Yeah, the art goes
believe
silent
so.
in French. That's correct.
And then is it Morjana? No, that's Spanish. Morjana Alaoui.
Alaoui, because the we is
Yeah.
there.
Alaoui.
Alaoui.
And Mylène Jampanoï.
Jampanoï.
I
That's
have
pretty
no
good.
idea.
I think that's pretty good. I think that's
my best
fair.
guess.
And
And
then for those
Catherine
listening, there's one
Bégin.
more.
Catherine Bégin, right?
Catherine Bégin. She is the old lady.
The Mademoiselle.
The Mademoiselle.
The Mademoiselle.
The Mademoiselle. Good job, Alan. I think
Thank
that's
you.
pretty good.
That's the best
I
that I
think
can
that
do.
at least gives credit for those listening. They can at least hear the names.
Yes.
For those watching the video, they can see them in the
And-
subtitles.
And I do think it's kind of important that we at least acknowledge them because I think the acting in this thing is insane. It's so good,
The acting's phenomenal.
especially considering the subject matter.
And yes, and for tonight's podcast, like usually I'll kind of lead us through the storyline of the film and kind of walk us through it because mostly up to this point, there have been films that I've chosen. Mm-hmm. But last podcast, we discussed this and we said, hey, Alan, you're going to choose the film. And this is actually a sophomore release from Pascal.
Yep.
This is his sophomore effort. He did an original debut. This was his follow-up to that. And so Alan chose The Martyrs, and you asked us how we were feeling. And I think the answer to that is, Brandon, what's your answer to how you're feeling to watching this film called The Martyrs? I read through, by the way, some of the stuff. Disturbing behavior involving strong bloody violence, torture, child abuse, and some nudity. Those all seem acceptable in the sense of a filmmaker to watch, but how do you feel after watching it?
First of all, disclaimer to anyone watching this, do not watch this high. I
Yeah.
was coming off of a high when I watched this, and that was a terrible mistake.
Great disclaimer.
Just a FYI.
Yeah,
out there.
that's probably a good idea, I would imagine.
Again, I feel like I'm glad I watched it just to kind of see how fucked up the French mind can be. No, I'm just joking. But it was engaging though to me.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to know where the story went. It was engaging. As you mentioned, the acting was superb. But I am not going to get nightmares over this. It was fucked up, but whatever.
And Alan's going to lead us through this story because I said, look, you got to take the lead
Yeah,
on this
for sure.
one. Because this is... So start us out with where you're at, Alan, and then we'll get into it.
Do you see what happens when you let me choose the movie?
Yeah,
I
it's
choose
a
the
terrible
most depraved
idea.
thing ever. But here's the thing, and maybe we can do it a little bit differently because I feel like I owe everybody an explanation first. Maybe not an explanation, but maybe a disclaimer. I don't know, the percentage of the audience who watches the movie before we talk about it and the percentage who watch it after or maybe don't watch it. If you are not ready to see some disturbing things, I probably wouldn't watch it. I can't recommend it to you, but it's a good movie. And I think maybe we can kind of talk about our feelings about the movie without giving spoilers at first, and then go into the spoiler thing.
Okay.
If that works for you guys,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I wouldn't even know how to spoil it, to be honest.
Well, the ending it's little.
I mean, I have some
Yeah.
concepts on about what he's even doing and what Pascal is even trying to say. I'm always diving into that subtextual meaning of things.
Yeah, I know.
And he's definitely digging deep into something
Right.
that's, I think, relatable to everybody when it comes to death and like what happens beyond the light of, or not the light, but what happens beyond when the eyes go dark.
Right.
So there's that, but before we even get into that, yeah, I think that's fair if you want to tackle it from the perspective of like where you're thinking.
Because I know for me, this movie, I had heard about it. I have a buddy he's actually my tattoo artist, and he and I we trade little like, you got to see this movie. It's so messed up. And he told me about this one, and he's like, dude, this is brutal. And it was one of those movies that I was intrigued by, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to see it. So I kind of got all the information I could get about what was in it without actually spoiling it for me. And it really didn't do it justice. I was just kind of dipping my toe in it. I do want to say that this isn't just torture porn. Like, I don't like...
It's not Saw.
It's not Saw. It's not Eli Roth. Like,
No.
it's... The violence, and it's pretty horrific. The violence in this serves the story. Like Eli Roth, Hostel was a movie that was just like, look how far we can go. And it was kind of like shocking just to shock. And that's cool. Like a lot of people like that. I enjoy a little bit more story, but I get where people like it because it's like, whoa, that's, when I watch a horror movie, it's fun to see the gore sometimes because it's like, whoa, that was awesome. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Bone Tomahawk.
Yes.
You've seen Bone Tomahawk.
Yes.
So that's a disturbing movie because of one scene.
Right.
One in particular scene. This movie is just relentless.
It never ends. I mean, there's always moments that I'm trying to just I'm just
Take
trying
a
to catch
breath.
my breath.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And off the top of my head, the one point where you feel like you can catch your breath immediately is taken away from you in a shocking way. Like and so it's a very violent movie. If you are up for it, I definitely think it's worth a watch because it's I like the movie. I can't say I recommend it, but I like it.
Singular watch for me,
Yes.
for my recommendation.
Yes.
I will not be watching this movie again.
This is the second time I've seen it, and I tried I tried to warn you guys before, being like, it's pretty brutal,
A few times,
so,
yes.
Yeah, a few times because I wanted you to know. So my first question is, did you feel that it was as bad as you thought it would be, or maybe as bad as I explained it, or was it?
Well, in our thread, we have a message thread on just Facebook, just a private message thread. And in the message thread, you had mentioned to be, hey, fair warning.
Right.
This is what to expect. And also, I kind of apologize in advance because this is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that was a fair warning.
Okay.
I think that was a fair warning. It at least prepped me enough to be a little more understanding going in, because Alan's going, hey, look, this is what, because I didn't do any research. I didn't watch a trailer. I didn't read plot lines, summaries, synopsis, anything about the film. Only that your disclaimer of like, just a fair warning, there's some brutality in there.
Yeah.
And coming from Alan, I'm just, for the audience, coming from Alan, I went way worse, which was good.
Okay.
So it's kind of where it
I mean,
landed, yeah.
I can see that, but at the same time, like, it was pretty bad.
There were some things in here that was pretty rough.
And the reason it's rough for me, one of the things I wrote when I was watching in my notes, like, I have to admit this to everybody listening and to you guys, which is there were moments, and I had went to see if I could find this film in an old old DVD shop. They didn't have it, of course. It's a foreign film, so I had to rent it or buy it on Amazon. And so I have to admit that I did use the 10-second skip on Amazon multiple times throughout the film.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I did.
Yep.
Because I understood the concept of what was happening, and I didn't need to subject myself to certain things any longer. And I'm not, look, it's, you can watch it and you can go with it. And I agree with you. Actually, when you look at the concept of the film, I think Pascal's got a pretty good movie on his hands. But because there's so much intensity to it, I understood certain moments already. I kind of compartmentalized what was happening, and I didn't need to continue watching it for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So admittedly, for everyone out there were moments that I did the 10-second skip on Amazon.
I did it a couple times near the end.
Did you? Okay.
I also did. Just the one time.
I don't want to jump the gun on that, but there is a moment at the end where there's so much elongated torture that I got the point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, when and the main character is there's two, Anna.
Right.
And once I understood what was happening to her to the point of the abuse and things of that nature, I was like, I can 10-second skip this multiple times.
Yeah, I'm not missing anything.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fair. And I almost think that part of kind of just beating you over the head, for lack of a better term, with all these images of violence, because it is kind of putting you in the place of these characters and what they have to go through. And there is a purpose for it, and we'll get to that for sure. But and maybe this can serve as for someone who doesn't really want to watch this. Maybe this can we can kind of guide you through it.
Because I think that's fair. I think there will be listeners out there that, unlike we're filmmakers and are really enthusiastic about what the movie making process is. So we're open, and there's very little filter to what we'll watch. Does that, you know,
yes,
because
for sure.
we want to open ourselves to the art. But I think there are listeners out there who will not really want to watch this film.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Which is
and
understandable.
I could be speaking for people, but I think that's a fair assessment.
For sure. So Brandon, so your expectations were way as far as the violence and the disturbing imagery.
Again, coming from you, and I know what kind of
Okay.
movies you like.
Okay.
I just hit the gas pedal in my
Okay.
head, and
That's
it's like,
fair.
okay. I figured be flying body parts
I
everywhere,
was
kind of thing.
kind of hoping that, because I didn't want it to be the opposite, where I underplayed it, and then you're like, holy shit.
No,
The one thing with that, quickly, which is, and I agree, I kind of did the same thing Brandon did, whereas I set my mind to the highest level possible.
yes,
The one thing that I didn't account for was, originally I thought maybe this is an exploitation film. So when it gets into exploitation, that's a different subject matter.
Yeah.
If you think about how it's played out, because it verges absurdity.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Right, for sure.
Whereas this film does not verge on absurdity, so therefore it makes it harder to watch because it's realistic.
And for me, there's almost, towards the beginning, there's almost a horror element, because I wouldn't classify this as a horror movie at all.
100% agree
Psychological.
with you. And I wrote that in my notes,
yeah.
which was like, oh, this is a classical horror film
Right.
in the first 5 minutes.
Right. And when you see, you know, when there's this part, and we'll get into this more, but when you're kind of in the horror mindset, to me, it was far more comfortable.
Yep.
Until that little trope is taken away from you, and it's just brutality, and there's no supernatural element, there's no horror, there's no jump scares. That's when it's uncomfortable.
After that opening, because I did write this, and these are and I'm spot on with you, because I wrote in my notes, starts out almost like a classic horror with the opener, jump scares, noises, sudden jumps, creepy monsters, and then cut to titles.
Yes. Yep.
And the creepy monster is the lady
Right.
that is revealed later, and that feels very horror-esque.
Right.
And then that's stripped from you.
Well, it's almost like it's the opposite of Hereditary, if you've seen that. For
that's
me,
a great movie. Until the end,
it
got
is
fucking weird.
Well, at first, that movie was so tough to watch with, spoiler if you haven't seen it. It's something brutal happens to a child. It was, accidental. And it's
both me and my wife were like, what the fuck, dude?
And the family's dealing with it, and it's gut-wrenching. But then when it got into the horror section at the end, that's when I was like, okay, now I can have fun with this. Now it's creepy, now it's fun. But before, it was hard to watch for me.
Because it was all authentic and real.
It was very realistic, right?
And you're right, it's the opposite here,
Right.
where originally we're like, okay, horror film, and then that's stripped from you, and you
Right,
feel
right.
the way you felt about Hereditary, at the beginning, you
Yes.
feel that all the way through this film.
Right. And it was almost like a relief in Hereditary, where this is just the opposite.
Opposite. 100%
It's like, oh my
opposite.
God, we're in some deep shit right now.
Because we go 60 minutes of just, are we over? Like, can I take a breath and is this movie over? And
Right.
Can this be done?
So, I guess, I don't know, there's not a whole lot more we can say without kind of jumping into spoilers. So I guess before we do that, why don't we just, Brennan, this is a weird question, but can you recommend this movie?
To certain people, sure.
Right.
I told my wife after watching this, I'm like, you will never watch this movie. Trust me. Do not watch this movie.
Well,
and because I just know, because of what we just barely talked about, is that she's actually okay with the supernatural and okay with like but when this can actually happen to a person, that's when she hits the brakes. I'm like, okay, I'm not watching that shit.
Well, and that was another reason why I wanted to warn you guys so that you weren't watching it with your significant others.
Yeah.
Because my girlfriend Jess, she loves horror movies too, but and at first I was like, let's watch this together. I've seen it before. I'm glad I didn't have her watch it with me though.
Yeah.
Because this is just, it's not horror. It's just brutality.
And following up to your question to Brandon, like similarly, I'm in that same boat, which is essentially, I would tell my wife, first time my wife would never want to watch it. It's what it does do, and we alluded to this a little bit, but what it does do is goes from horror film in the first little bit when the title credits come. Then the next 5 minutes or so, or in that ballpark, becomes very exploitative. Mm-hmm. Gunshots and people being murdered, and it feels like, okay, I mean, it's still dark, but it's like it's almost a little over the top, and then it twists again and takes us down the authenticity, and you go, oh man, this is real.
Almost
this
down
is
the
not
literal rabbit hole.
Yes.
Right.
And so those shifts in the storyline tend to, for those that want to watch it, you're going to watch the first 5 minutes and think horror classic. You're going to watch the next 5 minutes and think, oh, exploitative film. And then you're going to watch the next 70 minutes and be like, what the fuck are we doing?
Right. Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, the fact that an exploitative section or sequence could be a safety place, like that's kind of weird.
No, it is, and it is weird. But if you watch, and I don't want to compare because it's not in the same vein. However, for those listening, it might make sense. You watch something like a Tarantino film where it's completely, it's the absurdity and the beyond, and it's got that, lack of a better word, campiness to it.
Sure.
This doesn't have that.
No, not at all.
So there's no safety net. So I get what you're saying. That sounds like a weird place to go for a safety net,
right?
Which is exploitative films.
But it totally is.
But it totally is.
Yeah, exactly. And especially for me, because it was the second time I'd seen it. It was, and I do want to, one thing I wanted to say real quick is, usually when you see something and you kind of hype it up like this is pretty nuts or this is pretty scary, and that you watch it again, it's not as bad. This was worse the second time. It was
really,
which is crazy. It's been about a year, maybe a year and a half since I've seen it, and it was worse the second time.
And this came off once again a recommendation from your tattoo artist.
From my tattoo artist, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he loves depraved, weird stuff too.
But he's probably exceptionally talented as an artist.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, I guess with that said, we can kind of dive into the spoilers now.
So I would just jump in by saying like we already discussed, but there was unclarity to me on what's even happening in the first 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's a mystery box, therefore I'm in. Totally. Because I'm not sure exactly what's happening. One of the things that drew me in was the monster element, where we do get a glimpse into Lucy, mm-hmm. right, who's one of the characters. Lucy is a child who's, I'm not meaning to overtake it here.
No, you're good.
But I just mean this was one thing that caught my interest initially. That opening title sequence is pretty dark as well, but they don't see anything. It's just a detective or somebody alluding to the fact that this was a room or a place that torture happened to children.
Right.
And then it cuts to a pretty normal, quote unquote, scene of a psych ward where there's children kind of who have been through trauma going through the process of trying to heal, mm-hmm. and we get introduced to Lucy and Anna.
Yes, and there is an American remake that came out in I think 2015. It's very watered down. Like it does go into better detail about the kind of the relationship, the bond between Anna and Lucy, and I like that. Other than that, it's not. I mean, it's not even the same.
That's kind of interesting though, because I'm doing the research too. Like DVD Region 1, which is the United States, mm-hmm. and things of this movie of the Martyrs has been discontinued. They don't make it anymore.
It doesn't surprise me.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like it's like you're saying, oh, there was a reboot and it was watered down in the Americanized
Right.
version. Well, the French version's not even available for DVD anymore.
Which is interesting. But it doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, so then Anna and Lucy are
But they build a friendship.
They totally build a friendship, and it's great. And then you see the detectives come in, and because the very first shot, you see a girl running, and she was obviously her head
Bloodied
has been shaved.
and-
She's bloody. She's got bruised eyes, black eyes, and she's been through some shit. And then as they're in I guess the institution or what you would call it, you see that there are police officers there, and they're trying to figure out what happened to her, and they're talking to Anna, who is Lucy's best friend.
Because the exposition that's insinuated is that Anna had built a relationship with Lucy, who's this newcomer to the institution.
Right.
And she's and they have some relatability because they've both been through some kind of child abuse. Lucy's, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, far worse than Anna's. And Lucy is confided in Anna. Anna's actually a confidant for Lucy, and so the detectives and the psychiatrists are basically like, hey, what's the deal with your friend?
Right.
And can we get some more? Because she's not divulging anything.
She won't talk, and she basically says, well, Anna just says you have to catch them. You have to catch them.
And she says you have to catch him, and she also says, well, what's the deal? And she's scared.
She's scared.
And that's all she can continually kind of say.
And
Well,
then-
I love that Anna is her defender as well.
Definitely.
Which totally
She's
plays
looking
into
out
the
for
rest of the film.
Absolutely.
I mean that was I like that they established that because it makes so much more sense for the rest of the film.
Well,
So-
and then it gets into the little bit of the horror element when they're in their room and there's this monster coming after Lucy. And this is I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, this is a horror movie. I can handle this. Yeah. And I can't remember if
Well, it's Lucy with Anna with the detectives and the psychiatrist asking about Anna, and then the nurse comes in and says, we can't find what's her name?
Oh, we can't find
her.
We can't find Lucy.
And so
she didn't come to lunch.
Anna goes running up the stairs and she goes into their room.
Right.
And
that's
once
right.
she gets into the room, you see Lucy in the bathtub with cuts all over her arms,
That's
almost
right.
suicidal type.
And that's what you think. And she says, I didn't do these.
She says, I didn't do these. And so immediately you go, okay, this is some kind of apparition or spirit or ghost or monster.
And then we see later on in the room, we see the monster, well, kind of hinted towards the monster. And then I think it cuts to a family, a happy, very happy family.
Yeah, the contrast.
And they're having breakfast, and they're talking about college and all this kind of stuff for the teenage kids. And the mom is working on there's a block in the pipes or something. I can't remember. And
yeah, she's outside working on
she drops a dead mouse on the table.
And this is, to me, this is based on what is going to happen later. It's interesting that she brings in a dead mouse while they're eating breakfast, and she's like, this is the problem. She's kind of teasing them with it, and everyone's kind of freaking out. Like, oh, that's so gross. Ew, keep it away. Knowing what is going on
in the basement.
It's just interesting that a little dead mouse.
So this brings me to a question. So,
yes, I think I had the same question.
Do the kids? So
who's in the loop?
It's alluded later. We'll just throw some spoilers out there if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's alluded that the mother and the father are obviously
part of
creeps.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
But do the kids know? Do we know it? It doesn't really say, but I'm curious.
I like to think that they did just because of how they get taken out.
And we'll pick
Which
that
is
up
very
right now.
soon.
Yeah.
But
but she brings a mouse to the table and puts it on the table, and everyone freaks out.
Well, and it's also kind of a playful freak out. Like, it's like they're grossed out, but it's also, you can tell they're not.
We're eating here. Come on.
Yeah, but it's also like, obviously, this dead little thing. Like, these people that they're toying with are no different than like dead little mouse to these people. Like, these people they're torturing they are nothing but little animals.
So any listeners out there, keep that in mind, because what we're going to allude to is that they're treating these people that they end up torturing the same way that they would treat this mouse, which is like
just a
second.
It's a lab experiment.
A lab experiment. Yeah.
And then there's a knock at the door, and so this is when I spoke earlier where it's been pretty brutal so far. There's been lots of allusions to violence. We haven't really seen a whole lot, but it finally feels like this is a safe place. At least we have a breather for a minute. And then there's a knock on the door or doorbell. The dad goes to answer it. Immediate shotgun blast to the chest.
This is where I thought, oh, this is exploitation.
And now we're getting the exploitation, right?
Yeah.
Because it is over the top. And he
I
goes
mean, it's
flying.
real, and
it's
it
real.
feels
but
you take a jump back in your seat,
Right,
but you're
right.
like, oh, this is just going to be over the top,
right. And
intentionally, not
it's something we can handle, something
Yeah.
we've
Right.
seen before, right?
Shoots the dad. Mom gets hosed down. She kind of toys with Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber,
Right? Am I wrong here? Okay.
He's a little
French Justin Bieber.
French Justin Bieber.
He's a little Biebs.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad that he was dispatched.
French Canadian.
Well, and
French-
she tells him to sit down. She tells the kid to sit down, and she says, "Do you know what your parents did to me?"
This is
Yeah.
what I was alluding to.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
does
yeah.
the kid know? Because and it's, by the way, it's revealed that the person that shot the mom and dad as she comes
Is
in,
Lucy.
we know that it's Lucy
Right.
from the
'Cause-
previous scene.
because
Right.
they cast the kids
Right.
perfectly.
So this is 15 years later.
And it also has a subtitle that says 15 years later.
Right. And
Yeah.
you're right. They cast the young Lucy and the old Lucy. They look a lot like
Good
each other.
Lord.
It's
I
crazy.
mean, I had
I was wondering for a minute, like, did they somehow make her look younger?
Well,
in the
that's-
previous
yeah.
scenes?
Right.
but no, they
Yeah.
for both
both girls,
Yeah, for
yeah,
both
they
girls.
did.
Shout out to
Fantastic.
the casting director.
Yeah.
Definitely. She blasts French Justin Bieber. And then there's the daughter still in the house, and she runs under the bed, and she kind of plays with her a little bit, which is a little interesting. It was a little out of character.
But once she shot Justin Bieber, this is how we can lighten it up.
You gotta lighten it
We
up.
got to figure out ways to lighten this
Right.
up, because I'm telling you, everybody, this gets darker. But once she, because she asked Justin Bieber, "Do you know what your parents did?" It for the viewer, it alludes the fact that Justin Bieber's parents were into something deeper,
Right.
Yeah.
and they were the ones who were torturing her years ago,
Right.
And then he doesn't really answer, so you're kind of uncertain whether he knows or not,
Right.
And then she blasts him.
Yeah.
Right.
Or was he just in shock of just seeing his parents blown away?
For
And,
sure.
Yeah, so
It's a little bit questioning, though. Like,
Yeah.
for that reason of like, oh, mom and dad are blown apart, and now, do I know or do I? He's just in shock.
Well, and
Yeah.
you find out kind of why she is so adamant about taking these people out. And it almost feels to me like she just has to be sure. Like she can't take the chance that these people were involved and she lets them live
Right.
because she's tormented by this monster.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which up to this point for me too, I mean, I was kind of verging on it. I was thinking, and by the way, for those listening, there's kind of, it kind of intercuts between these scenes with Lucy kind of dealing with a physical, real monster, or what appears to be a physical, real monster. And for a moment, I was thinking, is this still the horror element?
Right.
Or is this
Right.
inside her head? I actually did wonder what it was.
Is this the grudge
Grudge.
Right,
ringing
right.
situation happening?
That's what I thought.
That's
Is
kind of
this-
what I thought.
Is this supernatural, or is this in her head? And I
For
was
sure.
still up to this point uncertain.
Right.
Yeah.
Then the daughter goes up and hides under the bed, and she gets on top of the bed and starts blasting away.
Just starts throwing
her
in
shotgun.
shell cartridges. Just throwing in cartridges and blasting the bed. Feathers
Yep,
flying
feathers
up,
up.
down,
Yep.
flying up.
Exactly.
Again, props to these kid actors. They portrayed being terrified quite well.
Absolutely.
Quite well.
And when you look at young Lucy, the job she did.
Yeah.
Because and I did watch. I watched most of the American remake, and just the acting contrast is not. It's not even on the same level. Like it's
No.
just a little kid being like ah, whereas little Lucy seems genuinely terrified,
Right.
and like she's genuinely been abused. And I don't know how you get a kid to act that way. That's insane.
French.
It's French.
Yeah. just
I
get the
was going to
French.
say, I think part of it, is the thing where you go international actors, you look at the Brits and you look at the French, like there's something about the acting discipline in European
100%,
or international countries that's different. And you only find that, and I'm just maybe just being overly judgy, but you only find that in America once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like, whereas there they can nail it almost all of them.
Yeah.
It's a different discipline.
It is different. And I mean, because they would never produce a Heather Graham or I can't think of anyone
Right,
else,
for
or a
sure.
Lindsay Lohan, for God's sake. I mean, that just doesn't come out of that pool.
For sure. For sure.
It just
It's a
doesn't.
different ilk,
Because
for
the only
sure.
kid I can think of that had chops, I mean, there's kids with chops, right? But like Dakota Fanning, when she was little, had chops.
Yeah.
That she could probably portray something dark if she was asked to. But it feels like on a general consensus that the European actors just, when it comes to acting discipline, are just a little bit tighter and a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
Well, they do a great job in the. I mean, all the performances are amazing. I mean, you really do believe that this is happening. It's that visceral. It's crazy.
And by the way, when she's shooting the bed with the kid underneath, and then we end up seeing her kill the kid,
Yep.
the other girl, like I'm definitely feeling the creepers here. Like I'm feeling
For sure.
really like beyond. Now I'm going,
Yeah.
okay, it's not exploitation. I'm starting to get weirded out.
Yes. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
Like, is there any humanity left in
Right.
Lucy at all?
Right.
Or has it been beaten out of her?
Right. Right.
Which I thought about. I was like, her humanity's gone.
Yeah. She
That's-
just went straight for the kids. Like
Because
she
that's
didn't
four
even-
people in the matter of 2-3 minutes
Right.
that she's just slaughtered.
Well, then you also think about it when she breaks into that house and she blasts the dad. You're thinking this is a revenge film, and this is gonna be the rest of the movie is her trying to take revenge.
I put that too. I thought, man, this is a rape revenge. And he doesn't allude to rape, but I just thought, but it's a revenge film, 100%, a splatter revenge film.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you said that because they do tell us from the beginning that no rape is involved.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't have to
Which-
do with rape, which is at least some. Breather.
At least there's a little bit, like thank God, because
Yeah.
if there was child rape on top of this, I don't know if I could have handled it.
Well, that's when I don't think the 10-second skip would have been enough.
Right, exactly.
No,
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been
exactly.
enough.
I think it'd have been to stop the movie and
Exactly.
and go straight to Caddyshack, which, by the way, is our next podcast.
But they
Or
do
fucking Care Bears or something.
yes,
Jesus Christ.
anything. Jeez. But they do let you know right from the get-go that it's not a rape thing. Thank God. But so I do think that it's going to be a revenge film. I feel like she's going to spend the rest of the movie tracking. Maybe the mom's going to get away, and then she's going to have to track her down. But she blasts that whole family within 2 minutes.
It's over.
And then where do we go from here? Like what could possibly happen now?
That's what crows. We were in a single location for the entire movie.
For the entire movie.
And that also didn't give me a breath. We were there the
Yeah,
whole
'cause you're
goddamn
trapped in
movie.
this
We're
thing.
trapped in the house.
Yeah.
Which was a great.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it did what it was supposed to do.
And just the set design and there's blood on the walls and just this pristine, wonderful family home is now tainted with blood and
The contrast is great.
It
'Cause
really
like
is.
you mentioned, the happy, quote unquote, family normalcy is there. And then within a matter of minutes, it's like completely upended.
shattered. And you're angry at Lucy at this point because we don't know,
Even after knowing some of her past, because at some point in here, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but we start to get a glimpse into her flashbacks about years ago, the 15 years prior, where she's been abused. And you're starting to get an idea of what her retribution is about. And there's some dark, those are hard to watch too.
Those are
where
really hard to watch.
You have a child basically being abused.
Because
So-
we're
so-
all fathers here.
But
Yes.
We all have children.
Yeah,
Yes.
And you automatically jump
So-
into that role.
And there's a justification of her actions then. Once you see what she's been through, you kind of
You're
are
like,
vindicated in a way of like, okay,
Okay.
I'm glad she at least took the parents out, but why the children? She just is. And the reality is she's teased and she's toyed with some kind of inner demon.
But
And
there's-
this is where we start to.
But there's also this. We just saw this family having a nice family moment, and they don't look like murderers and torturers. They don't look like that at all.
No.
So
Especially the
it's
children.
like this can't be right. Like it's got to be the wrong people, or this doesn't feel right at all.
Well, there is that question thrown in when Anna comes in, and she's like, "Are you like what the? I mean, you have a newspaper clipping for God's sake.
Right,
It's like
right.
it's
Well, that's that follow-up scene because
Yeah.
after Lucy takes everybody out, she makes a phone call.
yeah,
And Anna's waiting in a parking lot, and you could tell she's nervous as hell. So she helped track them down. Definitely, she knows.
Yeah.
She knows Lucy's going after him. I don't think she knew she was going to kill him,
No.
but she knew that.
And she
no,
says
she's
that on the
she's
phone.
yeah,
Right,
she's
right.
evident that she knows that
Right.
You
there's-
said you weren't sure is what she
Right,
tells her on
right.
the phone. And then Anna's like, it's worse than I thought, or worse. Like I took him out.
Right.
yeah,
And Lucy's like, wait, what?
And this is the part where you start to think that Anna loves Lucy, but she might not believe her.
Yeah.
Because we come to find out, and I don't know where in the course of the film it happens, but we come to find out that this thing that's torturing her is a monster that has been torturing her, and she thought that by killing the family that abused her, it would go away.
And she even speaks to the monster to that point and say, "Hey, I've done this. What more do you want?"
I even killed their kids.
Yeah.
I even killed their kids. Like, she reiterates it. But the doctors don't believe her, and it's questionable whether Anna believes her. Or Anna cares about her.
But now I know as a viewer that, hey, this is an inner demon. It's not a physical representation of something supernatural.
Her injuries are real. How does she cut her back?
I wrote the same question.
I wondered that too.
So that's what I was kind of like, I'm sure that was a deliberate thing to kind of fuck with our heads a little bit.
Probably.
But it's kind of like, I mean, I suppose she could just scratch herself on something, but it's like, you can't.
But they look like razor blade cuts. Yeah.
And I wrote the question in my notes, which was, is the golem creature real or in her head?
The golem creature.
She got the golem, and then I put a good question mark. She got cuts on her back.
Right.
Yeah. So
I wondered that too.
But the theory would be, I think we could probably secede to say, look, it's in her head.
For sure.
The backside cuts alone. I mean, the concept is that this demon that she's dealing with is from previous trauma, and it to us as a viewer, it's the physical representation, but the reality is it's in her head, and she's doing these abusive things to herself.
So is Anna, when she's stitching up her back, doing it to just appease?
Well, let's get there first. Should we get there first?
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get there first. Because
okay.
Again, I think Anna loves Lucy. She cares about her. Doesn't necessarily believe her though.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of shows that. But we'll get to that for sure. But Anna comes onto the scene and she's horrified about what has happened. They start.
She's physically sick.
She's physically sick.
She's probably never seen.
No, of course not.
That before.
Yeah. And so they start taking care of the bodies and everything, and they're kind of just hanging out in this house, which is. Really
I did think that was so strange because once she gets there, it's Anna, right, that arrives.
Yeah, Anna
because
arrives.
Lucy took him out.
Yeah.
We know that Lucy's dealing with some real shit. Anna arrives because Lucy calls her on the phone, and then she's like, wait, I thought you were just checking it out. You killed,
Yeah.
And then she arrives, and then all of a sudden she's in shock, like you mentioned. But then also, like, it cuts to a scene where she's just like, they're just like chilling out in the house in bed of the girl that they just killed.
Yeah.
Where's the Futurama Bender? Let's cheese it. Let's get the fuck out of here. Like, what are we doing?
Well, I think, and I don't remember, and this is probably the problem with watching the remake so close to this one. I don't remember if in this one, Anna says, we got to get you to a hospital. We got to call the cops.
Yeah.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
she does say something about alluding to authorities or calling the cops or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, she does.
Which would have been the smart move.
That's what you would think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you do. But so they're taking care of the bodies, and
well, Lucy's up in the girl's bed that she just killed, and it's kind of like she's resting, almost like she's been washed up, and then Anna's outside, and she's like dragging bodies out to the pipe that the mom was working on before, and throwing the bodies in a pit in the ditch.
Right.
And then she Lucy wakes up and walks over to the window and sees Anna taking the bodies out. So Anna's trying to cover for her.
Yeah.
While she's.
Which explains why she didn't just immediately leave. She's trying to cover for her friend. I thought they were going to torch the place. When she comes up with those.
That's the end of
whatever
the movie,
their hand. Yeah. Well, I just figured we'd go somewhere else.
Right.
I didn't think we'd be there the whole time.
It goes somewhere else.
It definitely goes somewhere else. But not where I thought I was going to be going.
No, me neither, because I thought that Lucy would see Anna and I thought they would bounce from the house. I thought they would.
For sure.
I was talking about you torch the house and then move on to whatever.
But you're right. Like it wasn't just that they were hanging out there taking care of the business. It felt like they were kind of just chilling, taking their time.
Yeah, it was really slow.
It was
moving.
weird. It was very weird.
It's like they're moving in almost.
But now also too, beyond what happens later, like that Anna has some pretty deep feelings for Lucy beyond even what a friendship would be.
Definitely.
Oh yeah. When does that happen?
That happens a little later.
I think it's in the bathroom right when they bring all the bodies in. She gives him like a kiss on the lips.
when she sees her take, so what happens is they see her taking the bodies out, and then because they put all the bodies in the bathroom, and then they go down into the bathroom. One of the bodies is already taken out, the dad.
The dad's out.
And then they're in the
ditch.
bathroom, and Lucy's like, comes down because she hears and sees the, I call it the golem creature, the thing in her head.
Yeah.
It basically looks like a golem, which is basically a creepy looking woman, grudge-like woman. But nonetheless, she hears that, and then it leads her to the downstairs to the bathroom, and they meet in the bathroom, and she's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm trying to cover up, and then they start having this conversation, and then before you know it, Anna's kissing Lucy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you go, Anna has some pretty intense feelings for Lucy.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's reciprocated.
It does not.
No.
It just feels like, but so that's why I say Anna really does love Lucy.
Yeah.
Very much.
And I think it's more of Lucy's just kind of she's kind of like in her game mode, or like she's got her purpose. She doesn't have time for that. Maybe later.
Well,
I
think you're right, but I also think she's so traumatized that there's nothing else going on in her head. It's just
that's what I mean. Is like she's in that mode.
Right.
Whatever that mode is.
Right.
Eliminate, find, destroy.
She's still dealing with Gollum.
Totally. I mean, and she never knows when it's going to pop up. And
I love the way they shot her.
Oh, it's great.
So
it's
it was
great.
so.
Yeah, it was creepy.
It was super creepy.
It was really creepy.
And it was just enough snippets just to like, when you're physically moving your head to look around the corners, like, you know they're doing a good job.
And then I think this is the part, and correct me if I'm wrong, when Anna finds out that the mom's still alive.
I feel like the day passes or something.
I think
some time does pass.
Yeah.
I gotta say,
the next
real
morning
quickly,
or something.
Yeah.
I love the snorkel cam of them dragging the bodies into the bathroom. So it's this shot of this kind of where the camera's basically attached to the subject.
Oh,
so
yeah.
In this case, it is the mother.
Yeah.
And they're dragging him in. That snorkel cam
Yeah.
where they drag him in, and you see the movement of the mom being dragged in, and it's very disturbing because it looks like the person's perspective of dragging them in, and it's super.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Creepy.
Oh, totally.
And
totally.
just really
very
raw
well
and
done.
dark and
Right.
And the filming of the golem and how they incorporate that into the thing where her mind's playing with her, and the sounds and the shots and everything is beautifully done. Essentially, then it gets to a point where it ends up being Lucy that's back in the bedroom, and they have a little conversation, and Lucy, Anna locks her in the bedroom and goes back down to try to get rid of the bodies. And while she's doing that, she finds out the mom, who Lucy shot in the gut with a shotgun, is still alive.
And she's trying to help the mom because she knows.
And
Lucy's
at that point, she's like, "Oh,
She's like, you got to be quiet.
We got to get you to a hospital and take care of you.
Right.
But just be quiet because now Lucy has heard some. She's actually heard in her head what is the demon.
Right.
Yeah.
And she finds a way to get out of the bedroom, comes down, and Anna's like, just telling the mom, hey, be quiet, because she doesn't want Lucy to know that she's helping the mom. Because I think at that point too, Anna doesn't believe that Lucy killed the right people.
Well, and there's even this part where, and I can't remember what preceded it, but Lucy drills it into her head. She's like, do you see this face? This is the face I saw that tortured me every day. Do you smell that smell? I smelt that smell of blood and gore every single day.
Even just the person, like the scent that person has.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's like, I know this. I know what this is.
This is it. And Anna
doesn't quite believe her. Even as much as she's helping her and like trying to help, she does not quite believe.
Right.
Because I think that was in the kitchen still.
It was. This was earlier for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But
it was right from the get-go.
Concept is that basically that Anna doesn't quite believe that Lucy killed the right people.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to save the mother.
And she also doesn't quite believe that there is a monster chasing her around everywhere.
Yeah.
And that she's trying to appease this monster by getting revenge.
Right.
Yeah. Which, just a side note, when the mom's eyes opened, I went horror again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck! It was a great.
Yeah.
Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like alone watching this, like at fucking night. You know, I'm just like
coming down
my high, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
And so the mom's alive, and Anna plays it off really well because Lucy comes out and she's just grabbing, I can't remember the dad, or not the dad, but the son, Justin Bieber, and she plays it off really good, just clearing the bodies out.
Yeah.
And when Lucy finds the mom, this is where we really see our first brutality, our first sense of brutality.
Which is a lot to say, considering what we've already said.
Considering everything we've been through. But she goes full Leatherface.
Yeah, just
with the sledgehammer
bludgeons
and just beats the woman over the head.
Except for the difference being that you see
Yes.
the brutality and bludgeoning of head.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
it's-
there's that one shot of her face going, just that hit.
Yeah.
And then just like her hair matted with blood. Ugh.
Well,
And the sound design, Jesus.
it's just done so well. I mean, if you can say that about a bludgeoning with a sledgehammer. And again, in the American remake, she stabs her with a knife. Like, it's not anywhere. Yeah, exactly.
It's like Psycho with Hitchcock on the staircase.
Exactly, yeah.
Which
And
is a great movie, but yeah, it's not. It doesn't carry the weight that this does.
The weight, exactly, yeah. And that was pretty disturbing. And then Lucy kind of goes off, and she's scaring Anna, like she's swinging the sledgehammer around. Like you were trying to help her. Why were you trying to help her?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Because Anna still is really like, hey, you didn't kill the right people.
No, yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
And now you are crazier than I thought. And as much as I love you, like, you made a mistake.
Right.
That's kind of the vibe of it.
I was kind of I was like, oh shit, here's the end of the road for Anna.
Right.
I was kind of getting that vibe. I'm like, oh, here comes the swing. Boom.
Right.
Bye,
Anna's
Anna.
end does come.
It does.
Not here, though.
No.
But the important part about this scene is she's swinging the sledgehammer around, and she punctures a little hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And
the sledgehammer it sticks to the...
It sticks to it.
In the wall, essentially.
Right,
Or the
right.
the air, yeah.
But then Anna's end does come very soon because the creature comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't understand why the creature keeps coming back for her. And
this is the point, too, where we see...
Lucy.
We see Lucy.
Yeah, excuse me, Lucy.
Yeah, we see Lucy going crazy, and we hear and see the creature, the golem, the monster. And then they play it with intercuts of not seeing the creature, the golem, the monster.
Right.
And Lucy actually doing the physical abuse to herself. And now it's crystal clear that it's in her head.
Yeah.
And now it also kind of pushes the narrative for Anna to go, wait, because Lucy starts banging her head against the wall. She grabs it's a razor knife, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like
to cut
a straight edge.
A straight edge. That's right, a straight edge. One of those old school straight edge. She starts cutting her arms and wrists, and you're like.
But we felt like that was the first time that Anna had ever seen Lucy actually physically do this to herself.
Right.
And that's
she
important.
had seen the results of it before, but now she's physically in person seeing what's going on.
And they're very careful to cut away every time the monster was
right.
Up to that
it was
point.
actually done pretty well, but it was also, you could tell that something's going on because Anna was not reacting how a person would react in those situations.
Right.
But you're right. This is the point where my girlfriend I was watching it on my phone, so I didn't have to subject the whole household to this movie. And
Can I say something real quick on that? I had to watch this film, Alan, in my office with the computer screen turned and the door locked.
Yes.
Or not even locked because it doesn't have a lock on it. And just the door closed with one headphone off to the side and one so that in case a child or a wife walked in, I could do a pause and make sure that because I didn't want my 7-year-old looking
of course not.
So anyway, alluding to what you're saying, like that was my circumstance for the film. So I know what you're talking about with the mobile device.
And this is the point where my girlfriend, Jess, like I don't know if she heard me reacting or if she just kind of happened to look over, but this is the part where Lucy is just going to town on her arm, and then she starts just splitting her wrist.
This is a 10-second flash forward for me.
Yeah, this was?
I couldn't watch it.
And I was like, well...
Because it's so real. The thing is, like, it's not a thing of, like, it's not Freddy Krueger with some thing that's like, and it's like...
Where she's up in the sky. And exactly. And it's totally
It's not that. It's completely authentic.
Very authentic.
And I had to do the flash forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think, actually, Jess was reacting to the sounds I was making because
you're over there. Oh my!
Yeah, she's used to me watching horror movies, and usually when something bloody or cool happens, I'm like, oh, whoa. But I guess the noises I was making were different because she goes, I've never heard you made those noises before, and then she looked over and it was just like brutality, just terrible.
What he tends to do, what Pascal tends to do, is go on for too long.
Yes.
He's like, okay, I got it after one shot, but then I saw shot 4, 5, and 6, and I'm like, I don't need to see the cuts anymore on the arm.
Again, I think...
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. I think that he seems to do it. It services the story. I really think it does. Whereas like Eli Roth and the Saw movies, I don't think those do. I think that's just gore for gore's sake. This is almost like these characters have gone through hell.
Yeah,
and he's putting you in their position. And I know that's kind of a...
It's like real time.
It's fair. It's a fair statement, though, for this movie.
For this movie, it's a cop out for a lot of horror filmmakers, but I really think it's true in this one. And then
because Lucy finally now she succeeds in the suicide. Like she had tried other attempts, but this one,
and she runs outside and she just takes the knife or the razor, whatever it is. And again, this was very, very real. And she just slits her neck,
her throat,
just straight up, and it was done.
It was done real because it didn't show the blood right away. It's just the cut, and then the blood came
cut
later.
Away.
Yeah, cut away to Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and then cuts back.
And this is one of the few times where I noticed the music because it really did service. Because I don't think
I didn't notice the music the whole fucking time.
This was
didn't.
A very important moment.
Yeah, no, it's important for a couple reasons, but back and also on the music, like I did notice that there were moments of horror type cues.
Yes.
There were cues of like the trope of like here's a little piece here and a little piece here. Right. This was not one of them.
No.
Mm-mm.
But there were moments of the jump scares and the little tactical music placements.
Right.
But the one where Lucy finally succeeds and cuts her throat with the razor knife is not one of those moments. But she finally gets what she was searching for, which is to end it all.
Absolutely. And when I talk about the music, it was like a music build. It was like a crescendo, and it was a very kind of poignant moment, and it was really sad. It was really sad.
It's sad, and it also, once again, it does service the story in that Anna is like, okay, now she's witnessed all these things. I mean, in person, but then it cuts after we see Lucy take her life. Then you almost wonder in the story, where's this going now?
Well, I had paused at that point. I'm like, there's a fucking hour left over.
Yes.
Yeah, we
like,
still
what
got
the
60
hell?
minutes. What's happening?
What could possibly happen now? Exactly.
And then the sledgehammer stuck in the wall.
Here's where it becomes important. And here is where it really gets bad.
It gets
because what happens is Anna's sitting there going, what?
It's the next day. It's the next day. So she brings her friend in.
Well, hold on, because before she does that, oh no, you're right. It's the next day. You're right. I apologize.
She's on the couch with the blanket on her and everything.
Right.
But she's had a shitty night.
Well, and she's still not sure that these are the people. Like
she's
all
not
of this may have happened for nothing.
Exactly. She's not 100% sure. She's feels bad for her friend, but she's not even certain that she believes all the things that Lucy went through in the sense of who she killed the right people, etc.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then that sledgehammer in the wall gives weight.
Yeah.
Well, and here's one thing. The first time I watched, she calls her mom.
Yeah.
And the first time I watched it, I didn't quite understand what the point of that was.
I thought it was going to come into play later.
I did too.
And the mom was going to find where Anna was and send authorities and save the day.
I did.
That's
too.
what
The first
I thought.
time I watched it.
But Pascal's not interested in going that direction.
Not at all.
He made some choices.
But it kind of makes a little bit of sense because, obviously, her and her mother have a strained relationship. You assume she's the one who abused her, and that's why Anna was in the institution as a kid. But it kind of also plays into that, when you have just been through trauma, what do you want to do? You want to call your mom.
Yeah.
And the second time I watched it, I'm like, okay, now I kind of get it.
But I thought it was going to service the story.
I did too. And so it's a little out of place, but it also, I kind of get it. We could have done without it, though.
It's a misdirection.
It's a misdirection for
because
sure.
I thought it was a breath. I think it was a needed breath.
Good point. That's a good point.
I think we needed that breath.
You know what? That's a good point. As far as pacing wise, we've been through hell.
I thought it was a plot to structure it for the outcome later.
Right.
And so did I. But like
like we
hindsight,
said, that doesn't happen.
Right? No, not at all.
Because the sledgehammer reveals something. Anna finds the secret basement because the sledgehammer drops and it's like
disappears.
Disappears.
But she hears the depth,
and the echoiness of the fall.
Right.
She's like, the hell?
And so this is the mystery box. Like, okay, now that we know Lucy's dead and we thought, oh, the story might be over, it's still an hour left of torture.
So she finds the secret basement.
The secret basement.
And just that shot of the dark stairs going down is just terrifying.
That's when I started, like, my butt started pinching, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
it's
shit.
like, just don't. Just
Now what?
Don't.
Now.
Don't.
Brandon's
go
like,
down
oh, we're playing prison rules.
Yeah, for real. Jesus Christ.
And-
I was sharpening my shiv. I'm getting all ready to go.
And up to this point, it's been brutal, but it's
Is
been
soap on a rope.
soap on a rope. Yeah.
I gotta lighten this up.
Yeah.
I know, dude.
Because it's
Please
getting
do.
so dark.
Jesus.
And
Well, up to this point, it's been brutal, but it's been doable. Like it's extreme, but it's been doable.
We've been to those paths.
if you've
before.
watched a horror film or even a dark type, you've kind of seen pieces to this already.
But again, like, it happens so fast. There's still an hour left in the movie.
Exactly.
And I'm just like, that's what your brain is wrapping around that. I'm like, the end.
when she
Roll credits. What are we doing?
Yeah.
When Anna finds that basement, the guilt starts.
Yep.
She starts to feel guilty because she starts to slowly realize that everything Lucy did was right
Yes.
in the sense of the vindication of the murders
Yes.
and killing the family, because it leads to the deeper, darker secrets of what's happening.
And I assume she knows right away too.
She knows right away because she even says in the line somewhere there,
yeah.
she says, "Forgive me." She's talking
That's
to
right.
her friend.
That's right. That's
so
right.
she's like, "Oh shit."
And
Well,
then-
when she's going by the murder movie posters,
Yes.
what,
Well, yeah. Well,
Like,
oh
the
yeah.
Murder movie.
I know,
That's
that
the
was
lightest
very
way to say
yeah,
it
that's-
because it's a bunch of images of tortured.
but it's like they're like marquees though. I mean,
They
they
are.
look like
They are.
that's
They are
what
like
they look
marquees.
like
It's a
movie
great-
It's a
posters.
great,
And this-
I know, but when you say movie poster, you think, "Oh, fun! Little kids want to see
Right.
movie posters."
No.
Nobody wants to
No.
see
No.
what's on these movie posters.
Not at all. And
Murder movie
this
posters.
is this is the point where it really becomes an exercise in endurance. It's
100%.
one of those movies.
And I keep saying this at this point, this hour probably got condensed to 30 minutes in my skip forward motion.
Oh yeah. And it's very
I'm
understandable.
not gonna lie to you.
And you just can feel it. Like this is literally, we're going through the threshold here. This is a whole new movie essentially.
Because I started going, okay, we got some eyes wide shut shit going on.
Yeah.
And then it got worse than eyes wide shut.
It's just like, but you're right. She's walking past these big posters that they do look like they're in marquees, like you see outside the theater. It's bizarre, and it's just grotesque images of people dying and being tortured.
Or what we find out to be, near death.
Near death, yes.
They're not quite.
I figured
But
they
one
were all
was a
dead.
severed head, right?
Well, had a cut across the neck.
I
but,
feel like
I
she
thought it was a
in-
severed head.
No,
I don't know.
I think
And I was like, I
in
don't
a
know how that's
blanket.
alive.
well, this becomes a concept for those listening. This becomes a concept later, which is the near death thing.
Yes, exactly.
But she's walking by this
Murder movie posters.
murder movie. I can't
torture movie
movie
torture
marquees.
yeah,
movie
it-
death marquees.
just horrific stuff. And then she finds a room,
Yeah.
and she finds something in the room. And you know what? We should say this. This is actually, before we go here, I think we need to explain what the creature was.
Yeah, because go ahead.
So Lucy's creature, when Lucy escaped, and there was a flashback and it showed how she escaped.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the mom like broke her ankle. She took her out of her chains, took Lucy out of her chains, and she kind of she tripped on the little thing that holds the chain in the cement.
She falls and is
Broke her
quote unquote
ankle.
injured.
Right. And so Lucy starts running out, but on the way out she sees another girl there.
Another victim.
The creature is her memory of this girl, and it is her guilt for not getting her out as well.
Right. And it is literally the woman we see in the flashbacks.
Exactly.
I call it the Gollum.
Exactly.
Because that's literally what she looks like. Skinny.
Definitely.
Well, she
Totally.
looks like Gollum from Lord of
Totally.
Right.
but creepier.
And she crawls around like the chick from The Grudge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the
But it's
whole
her guilt. It's her conscience building on her in her head about not helping this woman
Right.
later on once she was able to escape.
But it is a little bit more that we find out later that these victims all are seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeing things that aren't there. It's hallucinations. And it's also that. So it's an actual hallucination manifested from her guilt. So
And the tie-in now becomes Anna sees she in the basement when she goes past the movie poster marquees of death. She runs into.
She sees a girl.
Well, we first here's another important point for the viewer, not necessarily Anna's POV, but we see that it's the same setup that we've been seeing in the flashbacks the whole time, like the chair with the hole, and that's to the viewer like, oh fuck, she needs to get the hell out of there.
Right.
But she doesn't know that.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where I started getting like, oh shit.
Right.
This is 2.0.
Just we've just stumbled into some bad shit right now. It's scary.
Yeah.
And it's this girl who's just like the creature, very emaciated, close to death, and on her head,
oh my god,
is a steel plate that is steel staples into her scalp, and also a steel visor basically stapled to her face, so she can see nothing.
It's dark,
and it is one of the. I mean, I don't know how you even think of something this terrible.
And also, she has razor cuts all
over her.
It's
Not
like
just
it's
like
almost like
one
a
or two.
texture. It's like a texture.
It is.
There's so many.
Her skin is it's like it's textured with.
I mean, she's naked, but you can't almost tell because it's like
it's so scarred.
It's so scarred.
The human brain almost can't even understand what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's so disturbing, and this is when it's like, oh my God, get her to a hospital. But she doesn't do that.
No.
She doesn't do that at all.
She brings her upstairs.
She tries to help her on her own. And meanwhile, she brings her upstairs, still inside this family's house. Like, they haven't left. They're still there.
I gotta say, if I'm Anna, even though there's someone there, I go tell somebody.
Absolutely.
I'm out of that house.
Well, she even said something. She even said, like, I can't help you. She says that to her.
That's right, she does.
She says, I can't help you. But then she, like, Googles WebMD and starts ripping shit out of her goddamn skull. Like,
she's trying to take the visor,
the
embedded skull visor off her face so she can see. And she starts
so realistic.
She uses a flat-end screwdriver and starts popping
the staples.
Rivets.
I don't even want to call them staples because that doesn't
out of her
accurately
skull.
describe it. Yeah, and just the blood comes out. And then this is the part where this is the part I had the hardest time with.
Well, that's a Gabe FF right there.
Was it? So did you see when she actually pulled the whole?
I saw one staple get removed and then an FF happen for about 2 minutes.
Okay, so you didn't see. Did you watch
I watched
the removal?
whole thing. Yes, I watched it entire.
And it was done. It was very quickly, so it wasn't like gratuitous.
But
she pulls the whole thing off, the thing going across her head and the visor, and it just the skin is sticking to it. And it's
there's
gooey.
Like it's.
And it was the part I had
you
a
could
really
tell
hard time with.
They did by thinking it was on there for years.
Yes.
And just because it was
kind of molding to her head.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. Well,
that was very hard to watch, and whoever played this poor girl did an amazing job because I believed every ounce of pain that she was feeling.
Yeah. Once again, it goes back to the acting. A lot of this. Just really exceptional acting. If you don't have the actors portray such authenticity and realness, then it's not as believable.
I mean, again, just had an experience of working on a B movie horror, 2 of them, just this past few months, and being in that space and trying to get them to that space when you've got, I mean, you forget. We don't forget because we're filmmakers, but you forget as an audience member. There's a sound guy there. There's a gaffer there. There's an entire crew huddled around this scene, and you are trying to put yourself be isolated. And just again, getting props to these actors where they're not there. They're in a set, and they're just I don't know.
They did such
incredible.
a good job that even people like us, we know how the sausage is made. Like we've been on set.
Yeah,
I still forgot about all that stuff. Like
so did I.
It felt
to be honest.
straight up that it was just.
This is hindsight. I'm talking about, but in the moment,
obviously, but
but in the moment, absolutely.
And
not.
as an actor, I don't know how you do that with all
2
those
letters, FF.
FF.
Fast forward.
10 second fast forward.
I think it's FFF. Fuck. Fast forward.
Yeah.
That was an FFF.
It's a triple F right there.
That was a triple F.
It was a triple F for me because this scene's brutal. But she ends up basically pulling off this headgear.
Yes.
And then tries to help this girl who's obviously completely gone.
Right.
She's not
She can't ever live
She's
a life.
not a human.
Like,
I know that sounds. She's not human.
She's had all her humanity stripped away from her.
Yeah.
And
For
you find
years.
out why later on, but it's terrible. And then,
But she's seeing things similar to what Lucy is. She's dealing with inner demons because that leads to us seeing her.
she is slicing up her.
Just
She's not
taking
slicing it
herself
up.
out.
She's trying to sever her
Chop her arm off
with a butcher knife.
Yeah.
And Anna kind of comes into the room and sees her doing this and tries to stop her, and she goes crazy.
This is another triple F.
Yeah, it was bad.
I'm going through.
I mean,
can't
this
watch her sever her arm.
As soon as we find this girl, it gets bad. It's like it's a whole other level here.
Well, here's the thing: is like you're trying to grasp like, because you know that this person, she's so far gone that all of this help is irrelevant. She doesn't know where she's at.
Right,
She thinks
right.
it's a delusion.
There's nothing.
I mean, she threw the towel back over her eyes right as soon as it came up because she was
Put her back into
blind,
darkness.
put her
right.
back in the darkness where she's comfortable. I mean, all of this is just, it's irrelevant to this person.
Yeah.
Like,
nothing that can be
I was
done.
waiting for Anna just to like whip out, find the shotgun and
shotgun?
put this poor woman out of her misery.
Or just leave and go get the fucking authorities.
Yeah,
Let's end the
exactly,
movie.
exactly.
Also that.
Exactly.
Why are we not getting the cops?
Well,
What
okay.
the hell's going on here?
That leads into the next part of this.
Well,
That's the very next thing.
one thing I will say real quick is this whole time you don't know what's going on. We don't know
No.
why this is
The
happening.
mystery box is still present.
But
Oh, very
I have
much
no
so.
idea what's happening.
But it's almost to the point now where I don't really care because it's so rough. Like I just want to get it over with.
That's why I say just find the cops and end the movie.
Exactly. But it is so we're just as confused as Anna is at this
And
point.
then the men in black come.
And then
I thought it was the cops
So
because of the phone call.
Right. And the lady's freaking out, and she's
She left the phone off the hook.
When she called her mom, she left the phone off the hook.
Yeah.
Right.
So I figured trace.
And exactly, that's what I thought too. And then the girl is standing over Anna, and it looks like she's going to start chopping her up, and then bam, bullet hole to the head, and that girl's dead.
Out of fucking
Drop
nowhere.
dead. Out of nowhere.
The girl that Anna finds is now gone.
The visor chick is dead now,
Yeah.
mercifully.
I was like, thank
Gollum
God.
number
Yeah.
2, that's actually real,
Right,
is now dead.
mercifully.
Gee, that's true.
And then we enter movie number 3, essentially.
Here comes the man in black.
Yeah, exactly. And this is these people are like a well-oiled machine. They're like special ops, man. They know how to clear the house. They know what they're doing. They're taking bodies out. They're
Emotionless.
emotionless,
Which
And they
is
say
also
nothing.
really great
Exactly. And I think they slap Anna a couple times. They take her down into the basement, and they put up 2 chairs, and they sit her down in one, and then here comes Mademoiselle.
Mm-hmm.
And
Scary as fuck,
she's
too.
so scary. She's so scary.
Old raunchy lady.
Just an old raunchy lady.
It's like the woman from Goonies, but like actually scary.
But on acid.
But
Yes.
on acid.
Yes.
Like I mean her facial features, everything, she screams evil.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, ooh.
And-
She was a scary anyway.
She was terrifying. And she sits down and and here's where we get answers. We finally get some answers to what's going on. I can't really relay it as well as they do, but she shows her the pictures that she's seen on the posters and basically saying, look at the eyes.
Yeah.
These people are on the verge of death, and look at their eyes. They're
all
seeing
pointing
something.
up.
Yes, they're all pointing up. And I think she called it transcendence. If I'm not-
Transfiguration.
Transfiguration.
Which is relative to it's a religious concept of being transfigured into the holiness beyond death.
See,
Okay, I didn't know.
I went sainthood for some reason.
No, that's
At the-
right. I mean,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. It's a religious symbolism of like you're being transfigured. Like the concept was, and I don't know all the depth and detail, so don't quote me. But Christ was transfigured. Jesus Christ was transfigured into another
because of the
pain and the death of
yeah.
torture of dying. So
Yeah.
that element's there. He's playing into that element, at least in the writing of the script.
For sure. And it's basically what Mademoiselle tells Anna is that they have found that younger women are more predisposed, I guess, to being transfigured. That there are you get you experience so much suffering and so much torture that you're able to see past this world into the next life.
Yeah, because the concept, and here's the noun of transfiguration, the actual definition, and you talk about the religious symbolism of Jesus Christ. And it does have to deal with that. And it says a complete change of form or appearance into a more beautiful or spiritual state. So it's moving on into that potentiality of whatever lies beyond death.
Right. So basically, what they're trying to do is they're capturing these young girls and they're making them suffer and they're torturing
them to get to that point of transfiguration.
Exactly. They're trying to find out what happens after you die. Mm-hmm. That's it.
And this is where it got interesting to me in the sense that it brought some meaning, at least to, I mean, the last 30 minutes of this film, I literally FF'd through a ton of
sure.
it. Because once they get Anna down into the basement and they start the torturing, there's literally 20 minutes of just watching pure torture porn.
Right.
It's just beating the shit out of her. You know what I mean?
Right,
At that point, the FF was on full control.
And you feel like this is where I ended up FFing as well, is when because it goes through several cycles. Like you see that repetitive.
Did you FF or did you FFF?
Mine wasn't an FFF. It was more of a kind of like, okay, I get it.
Right. Well,
that's how I felt. It was a get it. Okay, we're moving on after 20 minutes of torture.
Yeah.
Right. So they put her in this little pit. I mean, it's not a pit. It's like a very tech-looking room, but you know they're coming down because the ladder drops. And then you know they're coming down.
Yeah.
They're going to feed her, and when she spits it out, they're going to slap her. And then they're going to beat the shit out of her.
They're going to take her off chains, give her that slight little hope of possibly making it to the ladder. But it ain't happened because there's a brute there who's just ready to beat the shit out of her.
Exactly. Which is part of the suffering.
Yeah.
Is making her think that maybe she can escape.
And the haircut. So when did I start to fast forward? I fast forwarded to when when they shaved off all her head. Like I watched the cutting of the hair.
Then it's like, I get it.
And then it did a couple of those. I'm like, okay, I get it.
Which again, this is the part where they just treat them like animals.
Yeah.
It's a little dead mouse to play with. You know.
I was trying to decide, like, is she going to be somehow different from Lucy?
Right.
Like I was waiting for, like, I mean, because they weren't planning on finding Anna. She was just a bonus.
Right.
Like,
right,
oh,
exactly.
sweet. Well, this one's dead. Let's try this one.
Try this one.
There was no plan there. That was just happenstance.
Exactly.
So
I
was like,
well, and there's something about forcing her to eat that food that was just,
ugh. It was like this yellow porridge.
I don't know what it was about that, but to me that was
curry.
Just
I don't know.
It was bad, but
when she'd go to spit it out, they'd just slap her.
Yeah.
And then she'd spit it out, and they'd just slap her. And then she'd spit it out, and it's like rinse, wash, repeat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rinse, wash, and you're like, oh my God.
And
this
is going to sound weird, but compared to what I imagine the visor chick went through, up to this point, Anna's kind of had it easier.
Yeah.
I feel like this is well, and
she's getting punched.
Mademoiselle even said that, like, we've refined
the process,
and we're
much more
light years,
organized
and
now,
we figured out the shortcut,
to get to the transfiguration.
And there isn't that interesting moment that the one lady, right before they go into the next
final
scene,
stage,
Jesus Christ,
yeah,
no pun intended on that one, but. She says she's almost excited for her.
Definitely.
She's like, you know what? You're almost there. Like she feels like she's going to be like she almost feels like she's going to be the one in a weird way. That's kind of where I got.
At one point, because Mademoiselle tells her that every one of these girls started seeing things. So Lucy was seeing the creature.
Yeah.
The visor chick was seeing cockroaches on her arm, and she said she would rather cut her arm off than have to suffer that.
Yeah.
And Anna is starting to talk to Lucy, and she's starting to communicate with Lucy. And Lucy's kind of talking her through this, like, you got to give in. You just have to give in. And then once she gives in, it gets easier. Like, they stop slapping her when she eats the food because she just eats it. And then Lucy says, you're almost done. There's just one more stage you got to go through.
That was Lucy?
That was Lucy.
She's talking. She's hearing and feeling Lucy's.
Oh, I thought it was one of the worker.
That was
Lucy.
That was
Yeah.
Lucy.
There is a moment later where the worker comes down and talks to her. One of the workers does
Right.
say that to her.
Okay, that's okay.
But
So
there's a
all right.
before that. It's actually in her head. At least that my thought was when I was watching it that it's Lucy talking her through some of these
Yeah.
things
Right.
that are going on.
And then the shot when she says there's one more stage, and the shot where it's just you see the doors with the windows and the windows light up,
Yeah.
and we kind of slowly push into the doors, and you hear machinery or something going on, and it's like, oh my God, what the fuck else can they possibly
Yeah.
What are they
do? What can they possibly do?
See, I was hoping that was the slight light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, maybe she's there and she's
Oh,
good
no.
now?
Oh no.
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 After watching 20, 25 minutes of torture, that's all it is. It's a montage,
Yep.
20 minutes plus of torture.
That goes on for we don't know how long.
Right.
Could be months, could be years.
Yeah, it doesn't.
We don't know.
In time and space, we don't know. But then it leads to this scene that you're speaking of.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alan. Bring us into the last.
This is your goddamn fault. You fucking tell them what happened.
Bring us into the culminating factor of what this movie is.
And before we get into this, I just want to let everybody know we're going to be talking about Caddyshack next week. So if you want a good laugh, join us for that one.
By the way, I did. Oh, we'll talk about that. Go ahead. I was gonna say I did that intentionally. Once you in the thread said,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is tough," I would go, "Let's go Caddyshack."
We'll go Caddyshack. We're going to get a good laugh. They bring her in and they strap her to this machine, and they it's a machine that flips her around so her
She's only really supported like by her head and her
Yeah.
and her arms
and her arms
maybe
and
her waist.
She's suspended in the air essentially, and they flip her around so her back's facing the ceiling and her front is facing the floor, and they don't show it mercifully, but they start cutting her skin off,
like
They're
all-
filleting her.
all of her skin.
She's getting filleted.
She's getting filleted.
except her immediate
Except
face.
Her face. Her face is the only skin she has left.
And I am really glad they didn't show that.
Me
Because
too.
that would have been a triple FF. Or that would have been a
me
triple
too.
F.
I almost
Fucking
wonder
fuck fast food.
if Pascal had like a director's cut somewhere where and they're just and someone's just like, dude, what the fuck are you? No, what? No, this is enough. Because I mean, it almost reminds me of Lars von Trier, where it's like, dude, you got to stop, man. What are you? There's no point. What are you doing here?
Well, her face was like so. While she's she's so beyond pain, like
Right.
she didn't
doesn't-
scream. She
Right.
doesn't. She's kind of
She
let
winces.
it happen a little bit, almost in a weird way.
But she's given in because
Yeah.
Lucy told her you just have to give in,
Right.
and this is it, and you're almost done. And this is, as a filmmaker, this is the part where I don't know how they did that. I don't know how they had, like, because you could see her face was raised up
Yeah.
from the rest of the body once the skin is all filleted off.
Which you
I
gotta
don't know how
hand
they
the
did that.
props to their makeup and
Makeup.
special effects, because that looked fucking real.
It looked so
It
real.
looked really good. There's got to be some kind of bodysuit with different prosthetics to,
Gotta be.
but it was done.
because her face didn't look like it had anything on it. It
No.
looked
No.
absolutely correct.
No, yeah, and even when she doesn't talk, but she whispers, and you can. It just it
And this
looks
came
so
out 2008.
2008.
Could have had a little bit of digital help, maybe.
Maybe.
'cause- but I mean, it looked unbelievably real.
But then they
Can
strap.
I also say, really, up to the last 30, 40 minutes, there's little to no dialogue.
Yeah, there's like none. There's
Yeah.
none. You do get a little glimpse of the torturers, and you see that they respect her because the big brute comes upstairs, and the woman, I don't know if it's his wife or his partner, like she's still hanging in there, and he goes, "It's amazing." And that's it. That's the only dialogue.
Yeah, it's very little. So you're getting pulled through an emotional roller coaster with no dialogue to tell you where to go. It's just through gruesome images and
Yeah.
concepts of imagination.
Well, because right after that, that's when we go back down to her, right? And we see the eye journey.
Yeah, so what happens is first they get her in a very Christ-like pose. They strap her to this thing, and
Yeah, I was like,
she's-
okay, I get it.
It's like she's on a cross essentially, and when we follow the brute upstairs, and he says it's amazing, and he goes, and he's trying to wash blood off. Like you can see he's a little horrified. Oh, it's on his neck, yeah. And you can see he's a little horrified by it. It's almost like, oh god, because he took a shower after and didn't get it all. But then he hears his partner woman scream. And he runs out and he said, what's up? And she goes, I've never seen an expression like this before. Like, she's done it. She's done it.
Yeah.
And They bring in Mademoiselle, and she, Anna is still alive, and she whispers something to Mademoiselle. And then you see the whole gathering of, I guess you call it a cult.
Yeah, she whispers this inaudible phrase. We don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is. But basically, Mademoiselle says, "What did you see?" But you know what? Let me back up a second. You're right. So after she says, "I've never seen," after the woman torturer says, "I've never seen an expression like it," then we cut to Anna, and it goes into her eye, and you're seeing lights and clouds and stuff like that.
Like a tunnel sort of thing.
Yeah, and then it zooms out of her eye. And that's kind of how you know she's seen the other side.
While she's hanging there in the Christ-like pose of being
Exactly.
filleted with nothing but her face left.
And she's got the look that all those other people had on their faces when they were close to death.
Yeah.
And so basically this cult has been trying to create these martyrs to tell them what's on the other side. And they have tried and tried and tried, and they've only had one other person reach transfiguration, but they did not relay what they saw.
Right.
Anna is the very first to relay what she's seen.
Yeah.
And so they gather up the cult.
Because she relays it to the
To
Mademoiselle.
Mademoiselle. They gather up the cult, and then you have Etienne, I think is the character's name. He addresses the entire cult, and they're a bunch of old people. They're all close to death. You could tell they want to know what's going on the other
It's
side.
a eyes wide
Totally.
shut society.
Totally,
Yeah.
exactly. And he
Bunch
says,
of old white people.
exactly. And he gives a little exposition, like we've tried this, and we haven't, only one other person has actually been a martyr, but we actually have one that has relayed what has happened. And they pay respects to Anna because they do, she sacrificed everything for these people. And she said, Mademoiselle's going to be down here in a minute to explain what she was told about the other side.
And important to also note, she's no longer communicating.
Yeah, Anna's no longer.
Yeah.
She was in that state for 2 hours, I think they said.
A little over.
A little over 2 hours. And then now she's not communicating. She's still alive, though.
Yeah.
As far as we know, she's still alive. And Etienne goes upstairs and he knocks on a door and says, Mademoiselle, are you ready? Everyone's here. And she's pulling off her eyelashes.
She's like ungetting ready.
Yes.
It's very ceremonious.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Like
She's
she has a little
doing
bit
her
of
fake eyelid or fake eyelashes.
Yeah, a little bit of a wig enhancement.
Her wig.
She takes off.
And
Like she's getting ready for bed.
Mhm.
Like
right.
almost. Yeah. It's
Well,
like,
she tells Etienne, she says, I'll be right there. And he's making sure. He's like, so she told you? Like she relayed it? And she said, yes. Was it clear? And she goes, it's very clear. And then he's getting all excited. He's starting to walk away from the door. And she says, Etienne,
Have you ever wondered?
have you ever wondered about the afterlife?
Like, I know that he's wondered, but like, what do you think it is?
Yes.
Is essentially what she's asking
Yeah.
him.
And he says something to the effect of, I don't know. I have no idea. And she pulls out a gun from her purse, and she just says to him, keep doubting. Sticks the gun in her mouth, pulls the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
We never find out what was relayed. We never find out why. Was she so excited to get to the afterlife? Did she realize that she's going to hell for what she's done? Do we realize that her work is done? So she's got to end it all? Like, we don't know.
It's very comparable to what life is, which is we don't know. And the question will keep moving forward. We don't have an understanding.
Right.
Even whether it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, the concept is it's going to leave at the same point it started, which is there's no real knowledge beyond what, and so.
and the way they end it, so they go back to, because it doesn't end there.
It doesn't quite end there.
It doesn't quite end there. And it goes back to Anna, who's still in the Jesus position. And
No, now she's in a tank.
She's in a
she's in the tank.
Yeah,
That's right.
of
That's right.
water.
That's right.
Almost preservation-like.
But it was really interesting. Did you watch the whole end credits?
Yeah.
I thought that was almost the more powerful part of the ending, with the footage of the two girls,
young Anna and young Lucy playing.
Because you're kind of
together.
like,
right.
God,
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad. It's very sad. In regards to the ending, though, that whole idea of keep doubting, that's the line I can't get. Like, because
that can go so many ways.
it can go so many ways. Like, why does that mean keep martyring people?
And here's the other thing: is there might be a slight lost in translation between French and English.
Could be.
There could be a word, because this happens in
That's
language
interesting.
all the
That's
time.
interesting.
Is that there's a word that means that, but not quite that.
Right. That
And
could be.
So
I don't think that's it. I get what
you know
you're
what I'm saying. It's like
yeah,
it
absolutely.
seems like they're because that could.
I think
there's so many-
Pascal's a nihilist.
At least he was when he wrote the film.
Well,
and
I
he's
don't know.
he's just saying none of it means anything, and y'all can interpret it how you want.
Well, I don't know how much research you did, but he wrote this movie while he was in a deep depression.
Yeah, I did see that portion of it where he confessed that he wrote the screenplay while he was in clinical depression, bordering on suicidal thoughts. And so that I think that's part of it. I think he's just that nihilistic viewpoint. I do agree with that. I think he's just like, look, I led you through this narrative of complete darkness and torture, and what I do like about it from a storytelling perspective, at least he has a meaning behind all the shit that's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's something there. Like a lot of times in an exploitation film, it's just blood for blood's sake, and that's fine too in a certain movie. But I did like that he gave a substance to it, but then left it. He did leave it high and dry, and he's just basically saying, existentially, hey, I don't know.
Well, you look at movies like, and I hate to keep going back to this, but like Hostel. Like that's gore, that's torture porn. There's not a whole lot redeeming. And people like that, and that's fine. Like, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's not a whole lot of redeeming stuff there. Cannibal Holocaust, there's nothing redeeming about that movie. This is so rough, but there is something going on here.
Well,
Yeah.
you look at the title itself, which is the same word in several languages, by the way. To me, what they did to them doesn't really mean martyrdom.
No, in fact, the
And do you know
definition
what I'm
they give, it ends on a definition of martyr, and it was not how we understand it.
Now, this would be something that you were alluding to earlier,
Yes.
where the translations get.
Well, that's kind of what. Yeah, I'm saying. So it's interesting that was the title of the film, but as we understand, martyr, it's someone who dies in the cause of something that they've done themselves.
Right.
I mean, she was just a victim.
Exactly.
She didn't do anything to be a martyr.
No,
as
not
I
at
understand the
all.
word.
Not at
so
all.
it's like,
And it not only that, but they don't refer to all their victims as martyrs. It's only the ones that are transfigured.
but
They're the only ones who are martyrs.
this just came to my mind though. Is the fact that she finally relented and gave in, is that enough of an act
That might be.
because does she ever understand why she's going through this? That's the question. I don't think she does.
I don't think she does either.
It doesn't feel like it. But
No.
I mean, she they explained it to her, and I think maybe that helped her let go finally.
Maybe.
And finally give up, but I don't think she truly understands the depravity of these people.
But there is a definition here that you could read that we could relate directly to the title and to Anna's character, which is a person who is put to death or endures great suffering on behalf of any belief, principle, or cause.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's directly applicable to her as a character.
So that definition doesn't necessarily make it the person who's being
because
killed.
these are the definite. Because the other one is the person who willingly suffers death.
Right.
But also in the definition that I'm reading here, and I guess there's variants of the definition. One is a person who is put to death or endures great suffering on behalf of any belief.
Interesting.
So in that case, it
would apply.
But in the case you're talking about, which is the other definition, it doesn't quite apply.
Which I think is the more commonly
it would seem
held
Yeah,
definition.
for sure. So,
so what are we saying about this movie, Alan? What the fuck?
I don't know. Like I struggle with this movie because, and I've been.
And thank you for bringing us to it.
We're going to give it a rating, but I don't know how to rate this thing.
I don't think it's what I do agree with. Like, it's not. You were talking about Hostel and some of those other movies. This film is not just about like sadistic gratification.
No.
Now it's there, and there's some real. We've already talked about it, but you're right. I think this film it's not just about that gratification.
Right.
Well,
like Hostel, the story behind Hostel was it's just a bunch of people in Europe who are paying to torture Americans because they hate Americans.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
I mean, it's dumb and it's fine, but this is not about that. This is about something much deeper, and the mystery is actually really good. That's kind of what keeps you engaged. Is that?
Well, that's what I was saying at the very beginning of the cast. Of like, it was engaging. You wanted to find out.
Yes.
It's almost like a small trilogy, all crammed into an hour and a half.
Right.
Well, what he does well, as much as I probably won't recommend this for people to watch, or at least select. It takes a certain type of person that want to watch this film, but I think what he does do as a filmmaker well is that emotionally, of course, it's there, and it's also the message is displayed in how he executes the story. So in other words, what I mean by that is he has a message of, you could call it existentialism or whatever it is, about going to a point and then suffering so much and then coming to an end. And that's literally the message of the film. The through line there, for me at least as I watch it, is like, I'm going through all this torture and pain and emotionality and feeling all this stuff, and then it kind of ends like we discussed, and there's uncertainty. And the message is in that sense is clear, and he definitely dives into that and is not afraid to convey that message to the images and the way that he displays the torture.
For sure. You would think that if you go through something as traumatic as this, that you would get something out of it, that there'd be a definite answer.
But that's what he's saying that thing, even though he's not giving us a resolute position at the end. He's taking us through that journey and then saying, that's what it is.
You don't get to know.
You don't get to know, but you felt it all. You went through the pain, you went through the torture, and now you got to discover it for yourself, which is the only way that we'll all ever discover what that means to die and get into that position of or near. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think as a filmmaker, like, he's pretty spot on in taking you through that journey.
I think so too. I think he did a great job. I guess my final question to you guys, and then we can start getting into the final segment here, is obviously I'm assuming you guys don't want to watch it again.
If someone paid me, I'd watch it again.
If someone paid you.
I own it now on Amazon
Yeah.
because I bought it, because that's the only way you can get it. Because, by the way, like I mentioned, it's not available on DVD distribution in the United States.
You can rent it on iTunes, which is what I did.
iTunes, it's rentable.
$4. That's what I did.
I'll probably delete it from my Amazon account. Can
Okay.
I do that? Can I call Amazon and say, remove this movie from my Amazon account?
Probably get a refund.
So,
And that's not even, we'll get into ratings. That's not about, it's just I don't need to see it again.
right. Oh, no, absolutely. So I guess my question is, are you glad you saw it? It's a tough question.
Brandon, you're up first on that answer.
Oh, Jesus.
Was it worth it?
Here's the thing. Every film, there's something for me to take from it. Any film that breaks boundaries, any film that goes in directions that I definitely would never go, I have to give props to. And I have to give props to the creativity, albeit a warped one, but the creativity of the writer and the filmmaker, and taking it places where I was questioning, I was engaged, I wanted to know what happened. I still am entirely clear what happened, to be honest, but at least there was closure. And so am I glad I watched it? Sure.
Was it
But
worth it? Was it
was worth it.
That hellish journey?
It was worth $4.
It was worth $4. Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree.
yes.
I think I'm going to just piggyback off what Brandon said. I don't think the film, what's interesting though is like we talked about those other comparable type of films like Hostel and things like that. This doesn't, for me, I mean, that's a good way for people to predicate their decision whether to watch the film or not. Does that make sense? But like, I think the film doesn't exist in a vacuum. This is a very singular piece of in torturous artwork.
Yeah.
Finish your thought. I'm going to say something you're going to yell at me for.
And that's really all I was going to say is that it's not for the faint of heart. It's not a movie that I'm going to watch continually. It's not one of my all-time favorites, but it's not, you can't, I mean, we've used Hostel and those type of movies, but it's not in a vacuum of that. It's its own thing separated from that. So it's for a certain group of people that have no filter and that are okay with watching films like Brandon mentioned, where you want to push yourself to see what wheelhouse you might not be part of otherwise. So
here's a statement that you're going to be angry
go
about.
ahead.
It is very singular, but I would categorize another movie that we've actually watched on this very podcast as a similar feeling type movie for me, and that would be Mother. Because of the emotion of wanting to know what happened and the journey and going in places where I didn't think it was going to go, I think
there's those similarities. The only difference for me, there's similarities, but the only difference is that Mother has an agenda.
Gabe loves Mother. Loves Mother. It's his favorite
Everybody
movie.
listening.
Top 10 all time.
Go back into the catalog. Episode 4
Mother.
of the Tame Aperture podcast.
That's a good recollection. You even know what episode
Oh, I
it was.
remember. Never watched the movie Mother. The reason I say that is because I get where you're going artistically, and I even said that in the podcast, which was Aronofsky as an artist is great, but there's a subtextual message in Mother that he's pushing that you're not getting pushed on here in this film.
And I would agree with that.
And so that's the difference for me.
That's the difference. The similarities of just the
of a movie
exploratory filmmaking and going places where
and also even more, I would, and a movie you don't need to watch, by the way. Never watch Mother. You can watch I would say there's a good comparable. Because I'd say it's okay if you're a certain wheelhouse and you're okay with like this kind. Watch Martyrs.
Mm-hmm.
Never watch Mother. It's a waste of fucking $35 million.
I may have mentioned that it was going to get him riled up.
Yeah.
Was I wrong?
You could see it kind of building. Like at first he wanted to
I'm
understand
not even riled
where
up.
you're coming from.
I'm just being honest.
You're just speaking truth, man.
I mean, I'm just spitting truth here.
Just speaking
truth is never spent. So I spent $10 on Martyrs, and I go, okay, I don't feel bad about that $10. Mm-hmm. If I had spent $10 on Mother, I'd have fucking shot myself with the shotgun.
Anyway, that's yeah.
The last thing I'll say,
there's some exploratory elements that I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Never watch Mother.
The last thing I'll say before I give my review, my rating is it's a little bit tough because if you're one of those people who wants to test yourself, I'm not sure this is the right movie for that. It is with the brutality, but it's not. You're not going to be testing yourself like you would with Cannibal Holocaust. Like
test yourself in which way?
Well, there are a lot of people out there who they want to see. It's an endurance test. Like they want to watch extreme cinema. They want to watch extreme things to see how much you can handle.
Yeah.
Like, go watch a Serbian film. Go watch Cannibal Holocaust. This
Centipede.
This is Human Centipede. Those
Good
are like,
God, that was awful.
Yeah. This is, you can definitely do that, but you're going to get more out. If you're just looking for a cheap thrill, there's more to this. Like
this is not a cheap thrill.
It's not a cheap thrill. Mm-mm. There's something going on, and it's almost like I can't get past the violence enough to really dissect the movie, if that makes any sense.
It's weird to me. It's not really I mean, it's violent, but it's not that kind of violence.
Right.
It's a different type of violence.
When you think of violence, you're not thinking of what's happening
No.
here. Right.
It's almost deliberate in a weird way that you almost accept it.
Right.
It's super weird. Like, it's just not like, it's not like a Saw. I mean, we keep going back to that comparison, but it's to me, that's violent.
Right.
This was methodical, and yes, it was violent, of course. I'm not saying it wasn't, but it was just a different type of violence.
Well, and when you think of violence, you think of, like we talked about Bone Tomahawk, there's one scene there that makes that movie disturbing, and that's it. Like, it's one big crescendo of violence. And that's usually what you think of when you think of these movies. This one is just relentless throughout. Like,
it's psychologically relentless.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing. We're talking about, once again, I think it has a bit more subtextual and artistic merit than Hostel or Mother. Like, for me, it has more merit to it artistically in the meaning of what he's trying to do. But I don't think you need to watch it. Like, if you're not in that what's the wheelhouse of people who are going to try to push them. I get what you're saying, but I don't think This is not
a
for the mainstream faint of heart.
Right.
It's just and it's obvious based on this discussion, but like it's just not for a group of certain people. No.
See, I almost think like
agree.
the Human Centipede fans and I don't know that they would resonate with this type of film. To be honest,
I agree.
It's almost too good for
exactly.
Like, I'm sure they would appreciate it.
They'd appreciate like the end.
Right.
They'd be like, "Ooh, cool," But
it's not.
They'd have a hard time getting to that point, though.
If they had started with the skinned person, it would have lost me. I would have been like, ugh, this is dumb.
Well, again, it was like it's 3 different movies rolled in a row.
Just builds and builds and builds. But so I'm gonna give my rating.
Yeah, let's jump into the
I'm
ratings.
giving it 7.5 staples to the head.
Damn.
I mean, I liked it, and there are flaws in there, but like I said, it's tough to get past all the imagery to really think about them.
Yeah. My rating is similar. I'm going about 6.5. 6.5 dead mice on the breakfast table.
Nice.
I just want the half mouse just there.
I did read a quick review, one of these quick reviews on Google. This is what this person said.
On Google?
On Google reviews. Undoubtedly one of the most gruesome movies ever made. Thank God for the French that have the courage to make, they have the courage to get serious, but more importantly, a genuinely creative storyline with an amazing twist at the conclusion. So I actually agree with that in a lot of ways. So I would sum it up for me in that essence of like, there's something there that they're pushing boundaries. They're unafraid, unabashed of like trying something new with an artistic voice. So I'm going to say, but for me, I don't agree.
I don't think there's a single twist in this entire movie. I think there's reveals.
Well, the conclusion. You didn't know what was happening at the end until Mademoiselle came in and told you what was happening.
But that's not a twist.
It is a twist because you had no fucking idea what was going to go on.
I think it's a difference between a twist and a reveal.
You had no idea.
I know that's a reveal.
Yeah, so you had no idea.
A twist is where you think something is going somewhere and then they twist you into a different direction.
Okay, but you could debate the wording, but it was a little twisty when they started filleting a person that I had no idea. I didn't think they were going to go that direction.
It turned a lot, but I don't know if I'd call them a twist. I think you're right. I think you might be talking about 2 different things.
That's true.
I think I'm just talking about whatever this. You're getting too caught up in the fucking word. Fuck, Brandon.
He's still pissed that you brought up
mother.
Yeah, I know. Fucking A. Can we move on from this torture porn?
Okay, next podcast, Caddyshack.
I think artistically it's done well, and as a filmmaker it's done well. It's not my wheelhouse. I wouldn't watch it again. I don't really have a lot of reason to. But I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
All right, we're all kind of right in the middle.
Do you have some trivia on this one, Alan?
Not really, more than what we discussed. Pascal was in a deep depression when he wrote this, and he wanted to write a movie about pain.
Well, I think he does that.
I think he succeeded in that one, for sure.
Here's some trivia. This is the first time probably Alan has ever had the highest rating of anyone.
That's a good point. Well,
that's not surprising.
Chainsaw, I had a higher rating for Chainsaw too.
Oh, okay.
But that's my favorite movie. So, and then obviously they did make an American remake, as you know we tend to do here in America, and it was watered down. If you want, it is essentially the same story. So if you want to kind of see the story without all of this. All the difficult parts, you can go watch that. It's not as good, but I do like what they did with the relationship with the 2 girls. That was better. But it's not the same. It's definitely not the same.
And I think there is something about, we haven't really talked about this, but there is something about having it be in French that and having to read their words. It's a whole different experience. I guess I like it.
There's
to
a
be
dubbed
honest.
version too, and I don't think I could handle the dubbed version.
Oh God, no, fuck,
not at all.
That would be weird.
Yeah, no. I don't like that. I don't like dubbed movies.
No.
Distributed by the Weinstein Company here in the United States,
which is interesting.
Go Harvey.
Making the world a better place in so many ways.
So, yeah.
Cool.
All right.
We done with the torture porn?
And it is once again
until October.
Until October,
yeah.
And then we'll jump back in. Yeah, I thought October was over.
Yeah, or
then,
until you give me control.
Until you
of the
give Alan
again.
control of the movie selection.
Let's do martyr in the most depressing month of the year.
Yeah, seriously.
Like mentioned in the intro, it is part of new French extremism. Those French really don't hold back. Hey, even in we've done another French film on the podcast called Jules and Jim by Francois Truffaut. And even in that, like, they're no holds bar in the sense of what they're really willing to push. It's a different concept, of course, and it's not about the darkness that this is. But the French filmmakers are willing to push to the extremities, and I do love that about them.
Yeah.
So this is this is Martyrs. If you have the guts, go check it out. It's currently on Amazon. This is the Tame Aperture podcast. Alan, nice work bringing us through this film.
Yeah, thanks for letting me take control.
You did a fantastic job.
It'll never happen again. I guarantee it. After this one.
Oh, you're
gonna revoke my.
Until October.
And then you can have it back. Brandon, thanks for being part of it. Even though you bring up Mother, and after this podcast, I'm going to fuck you up in the parking lot. I'll see you in the parking lot.
I'll have like a black eye in the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's lighten this up. Next podcast next week, we're going to talk about Caddyshack, directorial debut from Harold Ramis, and that'll kind of give us a breather from Martyrs. But go check it out. This is the Tame Aperture podcast on all streaming platforms and at www.tameaperture.com. Till next time, everybody. Peace.
The Tame Aperture podcast is produced by Dutch Angle Pictures in association with Studio B Productions. Listen, watch, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube.